Welcome everyone. My name's Chris Pierson. I'm the CEO and founder of BlackCloak. It's absolutely great to be here with my good friend James Shreve from Shreve Legal. Thank you, Jim, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Chris. It's always a pleasure.
So this morning we were talking at RSA, giving a 2-hour learning lab about deepfakes, AI-delivered deepfakes, both video as well as voice, and what we're seeing there. What were some of the big takeaways from this morning's meeting with everyone?
Well, I think one of the great aspects of what we provided here was the ability to take information security people and have them look at this problem from a number of different perspectives. They got to see it from the perspective of the questions they would ask if they were a member of the board, or if they were legal or compliance. You know, what are some of those questions that they would be asking, and what are some of the questions that they would be asked as well? So they could take that experience that's different than their own, go back and have greater perspective on these issues when they go back to their company.
Really, I mean, everything in security, especially as we get into deepfakes, as we get into AI and AI cybersecurity against a company, I mean, it seems like the fundamentals of have a relationship, have good communication paths, understand who you're working with as partners on your team really becomes even more important.
Oh, absolutely. Knowing your, all the internal resources you have, who does what, knowing who those people are in advance, knowing your external resources, whether or not they're people that you're hiring or whether they're people like the FBI, your local field office, setting up those relationships in advance so that you know who you're going to call, so they'll take your call when the time comes when you need them.
It's almost like back to basics. If you remember way back when, 2003, 2005, incident response basics. How do you think about making that phone call at 2 a.m. if the FBI or Secret Service need to be called in or get involved? It's really, come back full circle to those same things, the same principles in terms of have a plan, have an incident response plan, have the policy, be prepared. One of the things we talked about, maybe you could fill in the blanks a little bit more, was we talked about tabletop exercises and what people should really be engaged in. And we maybe had, I don't know, I'll call it maybe 10% of the audience had responded favorably to, yep, they've run some patterns and scenarios. Mm-hmm. But what were some of your takeaways there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those areas where the fundamental things apply as time goes by. And this is certainly one of them. And with tabletops, it's the same story we're hearing in a lot of other contexts. Is the tabletops are happening, they're happening within information security, they're not involving other people. And so if like we saw in ransomware, I would go into companies and say, okay, is the person who would decide whether or not you're going to pay a ransom involved in the exercise? Because they need to be. And so here, we need to involve some of the people who are most likely to be targeted by deepfakes, some of the people who are most likely to be the recipients of deepfakes. What are some of the entry points that people might, the threat actors might use? Yeah,
let's talk about that for a second. I mean, when you think about the biggest targets at any company in terms of deepfakes, who are those people going to be?
Well, it's going to be the people in control, disproportionately in finance. That's go where the money is. And so deepfakes here work just like the classic wire fraud. So you go after some of those same people, you use this new technique that's much more effective and try and get the money wired out. But it can also be used in other contexts as well. It opens up some additional attack vectors to the threat actors.
It was interesting when we asked about the leadership page, the About Us page and website and all the rest. I think we had a resounding, 95% of the people were raising their hands saying, yeah, we have a plethora of information out there.
Absolutely. There's far too much information out there. And chances are that half of the information on those people is out of date anyway, so it's so you need to be updating it, and so when you're doing that, cull a lot of that information.
Yeah, it's interesting. Over time, a lot of the basics that we've seen, from data breach to ransomware to other incidents that have evolved, it all follows very much some of the same predictive patterns in terms of cyber attack and what cyber criminals are doing, but also very much the success stories come out of clear communication, understanding through education and training what may or might happen, having good policies set up, or policies as kind of that backstop. Mm-hmm. But we also touched a little bit today on race, who's responsible, who's accountable, mm-hmm. who's consulted, who's informed as deepfake attacks evolve. What were some of the biggest takeaways you had there when you were listening to people?
Well, I think there was some talk about the policies, and I think it's very important to have someone responsible for it. I think reasonable minds can differ as to who oversees those policies, who oversees that program. But ultimately, someone has to. But that said, this is definitely one of those it takes a village kind of issues where there are a lot of people that have to be involved and who are part of the solution and are involved in the tabletops, are involved in the education. You run it by a lot of those groups.
Well, what's exciting here at RSA in 2026 is the fact that, look, AI is increasing. The amount of attacks that people are taking on companies, on corporate officers, board of directors is increasing. And the technology to do so is just, I mean, it is so amazing, such an increase from 2 years ago. So I don't think we're going to have any shortage of new attacks and new vectors coming in. And I think everyone was putting on their shopping list here at RSA how to think about this a little bit differently.
Absolutely. I mean, I deal with privacy, and I deal with cybersecurity. And one big advantage that cybersecurity has over privacy is this longstanding understanding that every new technology is both a sword and a shield.
Yeah.
That everything that can be used in positive ways can be used for negative ways. And so you need to think about that right along. It's kind of like the people who develop the poisons and they develop the antidote right along with it. You kind of have to have that same sort of mindset in cybersecurity. And cybersecurity has it. It's been more difficult in the privacy side.
Yeah, well, certainly going to be an interesting RSA 2026 as we talk about and think about more deepfakes and how they're affecting our companies, how they're affecting our leadership team. Jim, thank you very much for joining us here today. I appreciate it. And once again, if you want to learn more about deepfakes, more about impersonation defense and protection, we hope that you'll join us and learn more at BlackCloak.io.